last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
Well, greetings, everybody. Today, as we do this show, is the end of the month of March. Good God, it just has blown right through, hasn't it? Tomorrow, April Fool's Day, which is actually, I think, kind of appropriate. Tonight, one of the topics we're going to be discussing is Mars. Now, I personally have a long history with reporting on and investigating Mars, actually going back to the days of UFO magazine, when my beloved bride Vicky and I were publishing UFO magazine for over 20 years. And we had, as a matter of fact, going back through the past issues, quite a few issues devoted to Mars, Mars exploration, Mars mysteries, and some other odds and ends. But I'm going to do something right now that, as a rule, I don't do. I don't do it on my radio show because, I don't want to stir up a lot of controversy and crapola. I mean, the topic that we do here, UFO, UAPs, assorted phenomena, that's enough to stir the pot. But right now, today, we have a guy in this country who owns a rocket consortium. And one of the things that this guy wants to do is to lead a charge to Mars with human explorers on it. Now, that could happen, if all goes according to plan, anytime probably in the next 10 to 15 years. 10 years from now, it'll be what? My God, 2035. And 5 more years, 2040. Could we be to Mars by then? Very possible. But that's not all this guy has accomplished. This guy has accomplished bringing 2 stranded astronauts back to Earth after they were left up there for practically 9 months or so, floating around on the ISS. Nobody in the last administration, the Joe Biden administration, apparently gave a shit one way or the other. This guy, his name's Elon Musk, went up and got them. Going back the last 5 to 10 years, this guy did something else. He created one of the most successful EVs in history, electric vehicle. Why? Well, what was the screaming rant on the left? carbon footprints, gasoline vehicles, gasoline-powered cars leave all this carbon in the atmosphere, which actually is a bucket of bullshit, especially if you live out here in California, where we are required by law to have catalytic converters. As a matter of fact, we got a new criminal enterprise out here. Assholes running around stealing catalytic converters. But anyway, this guy was beloved until he became a crew member on Donald Trump's pirate ship. What did I say? Yeah, I said a pirate ship. Actually, I can't claim any fame to that. It came actually from a Fox host and commentator by the name of Greg Gutfeld. And what do I mean by a pirate ship? Well, Trump, who at one time was a Democrat, became a Republican. I don't know why. I've never met the man. I couldn't tell you. But apparently he wasn't happy with the way things were going on that side of the aisle. And he went out and he started putting together his pirate crew. One of the most unbelievable. And hey, I can remember, because I was a young kid at the time, the John Fitzgerald Kennedy assassination in 1963. I was in junior high school then when that happened. One of the hallmarks, the icons of the entire Democratic Party were the Kennedys out of Boston, Mass. Well, Trump managed to grab one to join his crew in his current administration. Going to head up the health department. Others, Tulsi Gabbard, another former Democrat. I mean, this guy has been going, and I'll just say it, balls to the wall. Now, you may notice I'm in a little different frame of mind tonight, and that has something to do with my personal history. It involves Vietnam over 50 years ago when I was a young troop up on the demilitarized zone in South Vietnam. We got overrun. A couple of days later, I got banged up really good. So every year I go through this. It's a process. I've got to work my way through it. And my wife will tell you I can be a real bear sometimes. I got to temper myself. I have a hard time sometimes doing that, but be that as it may, I'm just being upfront with you. I'm telling you the truth. So if I seem a little more curmudgeonly tonight, you may know why. But anyway, to get back to Elon Musk, here's a man that is working on brain implants to enable paraplegics to possibly at some point walk. He made one of the most successful electric vehicles ever. He rescued stranded astronauts. He's going balls to the wall to get the Americans, the United States of America, to Mars. And suddenly the left thinks he's a shitbird. Oh yeah, a shitbird. They're running around vandalizing his dealerships, burning up his cars. Okay, how much carbon are those sons of bitches putting in the air? And basically trying to drive the man out of business. Why? Well, after all of my lifetime seeing the waste, the abuse, and the theft of federal dollars going out the ass end, and you all have heard some of what Doge, his organization, has uncovered. Okay, he's trying to help Trump put a stop to it. Now, look, when it comes to policy, I got to tell you, I agree practically 100% with Trump on policy, especially foreign policy. Here's a man that wants to try to stop international conflict going on right now. Look at what's happened in the Ukraine with Russia and the Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands have died. Entire cultures blown away, wiped out. The possibility of other countries like Poland and Lithuania and other small countries possibly at some point being invaded. Trump's trying to stop it. But yet Trump is the left's target of choice for being the biggest son of a bitch in the arena. Why? Well, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth, okay? And this is my fucking show, so I'm going to tell you my opinion. My opinion, quite simple, they're butthurt because they lost the White House. Now, usually I don't go political. Tonight I am a little bit. How did that happen? Well, from my standpoint, and this is only me talking, nobody else, Biden was unfit from day one to take office, but they ran one of the biggest smoke and mirrors and dog and pony show in recent memory to get that guy elected. And I'm going to tell you something else that I believe, not that you have to believe it. Personally, I don't give a shit. But they stole that fucking election. That's what I believe. Okay? Now, with that being said, all right, even they at some point recognized that he couldn't go on. Okay? And that was after he had the infamous debate with Trump back in 2024, I guess it is now. And it was obvious. He was like a deer. Biden was like a deer caught in the headlights at night, late night on a country road. Well, so what happened? Did they do the right thing and hold a nomination to see who might fill their bill to put somebody in there to run instead of Biden? No. They knifed Biden in the back. Now, I can't say I was butthurt over that, but fact of the matter is they knifed him in the back. They pushed his ass out. And then by fiat, they chose one of the piss poorest candidates in the world that couldn't string a fucking sentence together that was understandable, Kamala Harris. Well, you know what? They lost. And oh boy, that wasn't good. Not only did they lose there, they lost the House, they lost the Senate. And now Trump, one of the most, and I'm going to tell you something else I believe, one of the most persecuted people in American electoral history. They did everything to destroy that man. Indictment after indictment, bullshit indictments, I might add. Hey, I was a cop. I know about indictments. I know about court cases. I've testified hundreds of times in court. I saw it. And you know what? The guy powered through it. Nobody else could have ever done that. I remember Richard Nixon. Okay, now that's a name out of the history. Nixon was president when I was in Vietnam. And when I got overrun, my camp, the team I was with got overrun, and I got wounded a couple of days later. It was Easter Sunday. And as a matter of fact, I don't usually say this, but I died on the operating table. Obviously, they resuscitated me because here I am. But when I got home, okay, which was late summer, 1972, the election process was in full swing. Nixon was running against George McGovern. Okay. McGovern, another white flag apologist. By that time, the United States of America had lost approximately 60,000 American soldiers, Marines, Navy, Air Force. 60,000. And the Democrat Congress at that time, okay, Nixon was able to get the North Vietnamese commies to the peace talks in Paris. They made a deal. The deal was America was going to withdraw, bring all the troops home, okay, in a scheduled disengagement, and Nixon assured the South Vietnamese government that if anything happened after we left, we would back them to the hilt. Well, guess what? Watergate happened. Now, I'm not going to make any apologies for what Nixon and his team did. They got caught. Nixon ended up having to resign from the office. Gerry Ford took over. Incidentally, Gerry Ford was the new vice president because the other vice president, Spiro Agnew, got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He had to resign. Crooked son of a bitch. So when Gerry Ford took over, and of course Congress, the Senate, the House, were all run by the Democratic Party, North Vietnamese saw their chance and started another invasion. The South Vietnamese came screaming to us, help, 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 and we turned our back on them. Thank you, Democratic Congress. They're a communist nation now. In part, the domino theory played out. If you don't know what that is, look it up. So anyway, today we look around. I was just reading some news stories earlier, okay, about Tesla dealerships being protested and vandalized, and a 61-year-old woman, I read the article just before I came on the show, was driving down the road in her Tesla. A guy cut her off in the middle of the highway, came running up and started pounding on her through the window. This is the kind of fucking lunacy that's going on today. Well, I don't have a Tesla, okay? But if I did, and somebody pulled me off, that son of a bitch would have the biggest surprise of his soon-to-be very short life, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get on with the show. Tonight, once again, we've got Mark Center joining me. We've got Gerry Kissell joining me. And our guest tonight is Dr. John Brandenberg, noted Mars scientist and actual rocket guy. John, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Okay. All right. Sorry for the little side trip there, gang.
But I lived
it
through
in me. I
all
had
that
to get it
shit.
out.
I remember all that shit vividly. You know,
Yeah.
that we turned our back on our former allies in Vietnam, and now the Dems got the nerve to say, "Oh, we're abandoning Ukraine."
Yeah.
After
Yeah,
they abandoned Wisconsin, they abandoned Afghanistan, and they abandoned South Vietnam. Now they're talking about abandoning, you know, our allies. I mean, send your sons over there. There.
You know what?
They're ready-
What a
they're ready
wise
to
old
do it
man once
again.
told me.
What?
You know what a wise old man once told me?
No.
Shit happens. Shit happens.
Well, it's the war in Ukraine is just a tragedy, and they're losing the war. You know, Russia has 4 times the population of Ukraine. I'm sorry. And
Hey, I've been
you know,
to a war. They're no goddamn fun. Let me tell you what.
they're they're no goddamn fun. And so, I think we just got to settle that thing the best we can. And, they're losing the war anyway. I mean, the only thing that's going to save them is a massive intervention from our European allies, the French, the British. Welcome on in, go charging in there, Well, anyway, let's quit talking about planet Earth right now, about stuff we can't do anything about right now. Let's talk about someplace else. Let's talk about Mars.
Mars. Let's talk about Uranus. Oh, wait.
Uranus. Do you have rings around Uranus?
Uranus has rings.
Yeah, yes, it does. And it's a bit itchy.
There's a funny little story about the planet Uranus. It was originally named King George Regium by this British astronomer. He was trying to make King George of England feel better after he lost the Revolutionary War. I mean, the poor king was so upset that no one could even mention that they'd lost the Battle of Yorktown to him for like a year. And so this astronomer discovered the planet Uranus. So he named it after King George, and the rest of Europe, just the European astronomies, they renamed it Uranus. And by the way, in Latin, Uranus means just what it means in English. It turns out it was also the Greek god of the heavens, But anyway, so it was kind of revenge.
Well, this is about Mars tonight, John. I want to talk about Mars.
Yeah, we're talking a different planet there, different planet.
Now, let's go back in 1989, 1990.
Yeah.
Zecharia Sitchin, who is known for writing the Earth Chronicles series of books about the ancient Sumerians, the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came, allegedly bringing the art of civilization to human beings down here. Sitchin wrote that according to his interpretations of many Sumerian texts, going back 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, when these documents were originally written, talked about these travelers coming to Earth, but also to Mars. Now, they had set up, according to these documents, bases on Mars. Now, what Sitchin was talking about in Genesis Revisited, he believed that those ancient bases had been reactivated. Now, he didn't just do that out of thin air. The Soviet Union had sent 2 probes. There was still a Soviet Union then, before the collapse. Okay. They sent 2 probes to Mars, Phobos 1, Phobos 2. Phobos 1 never made it, but Phobos 2 did. Once it got there and took up orbit around Mars, it was shooting a ton of photographs. One of the photographs, and Sitchin included that in his book, was this huge ellipsoid shadow reflected off the atmosphere of Mars. And turning the camera around, it began shooting, and it shot something that the Soviet Glavkosmos Space Organization said was an unknown object 15.5 miles in length and roughly a mile in diameter. Now, on board Phobos 2, there was an extremely powerful laser.
Yes.
And the idea for this laser, because back in those days, even before the Soviet Union collapsed, the United States, NASA, and the Soviet Union's Cosmos were theorizing about the possibility of a joint mission to Mars.
Yes.
With Russian cosmonauts, American astronauts. So the thinking at that time was, we're going to find out what the Martian moon Phobos is made out of. They were going to fire that laser into Phobos, analyze the escaping gases to try to figure out what the hell it's made out of. Now, look, Phobos and its sister moon, Deimos, which is even smaller, are very strange, and it's something that most astronomers don't even talk about. These things are in a retrograde orbit. They're orbiting Mars directly 180 degrees different than everything else seems to orbit around. Now, they weren't even discovered by astronomers until about 1870, 3, 4, 5,
late
6.
1870s, by Asaph Hall.
But we had the equipment that could have seen them, but we never did. We had powerful instruments that could have detected them, but they never did. Now that is a mystery. And suddenly they seemingly popped up. There they were. Now, one theory, and I don't know how much credence to put into it, is that these objects were placed into Mars orbit. Is that possible? I don't know. But at any rate, this was a mystery. And now, Phobos 2, when it went to Mars in 1989, detected hotspots on Mars. In other words, areas on the Martian surface that radiated heat. Now, Mars has always been considered, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, geologically dead.
That's right.
Okay?
A NASA memorandum said so.
It's geologic. So what the hell is causing those hot spots to pop up? Well, according to Sitchin, he theorized that they were reactivated extraterrestrial bases. Take it away, John.
Well, there's another explanation, by the way, and if you check on, do a Google search on elongated clouds on Mars, and I don't want anybody in the studio to panic, especially Chantel, but apparently one of the volcanoes on Mars is erupting, but NASA is so fixated on the fact that Mars is dead. I mean, it's putting out this one volcano is putting out this long column of steam, which is mostly what volcanoes emit. They emit steam and, of course, some sulfur and other things mixed in. But it's basically just steam. And NASA refuses to acknowledge the possibility that this volcano is erupting. And as if it's going to cause people to panic or something like that. They want Mars geologically dead as well as biologically dead. That's their doctrine at Mars.
Is that JPL?
Oh, of course it's JPL. And JPL,
not NASA Houston.
Oh no, there's great tension between Houston and Pasadena, JPL and NASA Johnson, because the people at the saying is at Jet Propulsion Lab, if we find anything really exciting on Mars, like life, this is the saying I heard, the astronauts will come with their big rockets and take Mars away from us. They'll lose control of Mars. And right now, the planet Mars is an all-you-can-eat budget buffet for Jet Propulsion Lab.
Well, John, I'll tell you a little story. I think I told told you this before.
Yeah.
But back in 2004, when I began this new radio program, Dark Matters Radio, Dwight Schultz, noted actor, screen star, what have you, okay, was my co-host. We had been very close friends then. And just down the street from Schultz's home was a JPL scientist. And he called me up, Schultz called me up one day, and this would have been, oh God, I think it was around 2004. And he said, hey, you're not going to believe what so-and-so just told me. And I knew who he was talking about. And I said, what? He said, JPL discovered running water.
Yes.
On Mars. And I said, oh my God, that's unbelievable. You know what that means? If there's running water there, there's a chance of some type of life. They sat on that forever.
Oh, yeah.
Before they ever released it. I knew about it. And I mentioned it on my show. Now, I don't know if people thought I was out of my mind or what, but yeah, they found it and they sat on it. So that would, I think, hold true for anything else even more mysterious, John.
Oh, absolutely. I'll just give you a status report right now. They have found now long, complicated molecules on Mars with the Mars rover that are consistent with, dead cells from a previous era on Mars when Mars was like Earth. And they have now established, early Earth had a magnetic field, it had liquid water, and it had lots of organic matter, and life appeared. The details are not important. That happened about 3.5 billion years ago. They have now evidence in the Australian outback. So life was already running on Earth as soon as there was basically a liquid ocean. Now we've established that Mars had identical conditions to early Mars had identical conditions to early Earth. So scientifically, if you're going to make the assumption that Earth is not a special case, then that means life would have originated on Mars like it did on Earth. We don't know the exact process, but we know the conditions that made life on Earth were also present on Mars. Mars had a nice magnetic field when it was young. And I've challenged people. I said, okay, if Mars had identical to conditions to those on Earth, tell me why it wouldn't have life on it. And no one on X will take me up on that. They're silent. So basically, you can make the scientific case now that Earth is not a special case. I mean, we have 3 planets in this solar system that are in the Goldilocks zone where you can have liquid water on the surface, assuming you distract the effects of the atmosphere like at Venus, where they've got this big water-driven greenhouse, basically. And then, of course, Earth in the center of the Goldilocks zone, and you've got Mars that used to have liquid water. Now we go to Alpha Centauri, the very next star in the entire galaxy that is closest to us. It's got a planet in the Goldilocks zone, almost the exact same size as Earth or Venus. So that tells you something right there. Earth is not unique. It's not a special case. So there's nothing about Earth that is apparently that unique. Well, except maybe that we got this nice big moon. But so if you find the same conditions on Mars as you found on Earth, that means scientifically you had to have had life on early Mars. And once you have life, of course, you have evolution. That life becomes more complex in time. I mean, we don't know the details of that process exactly, but we know it occurs. Now, then it's just a matter of how long did this liquid water era, where Mars had an ocean, how long did that last before some cataclysm destroyed Mars' Earth-like environment and made it what it is today, kind of a frozen desert. So I throw that out to you. Gerry, tell me why Mars wouldn't have life on it if it had identical conditions to early Earth.
It wouldn't.
I don't hear you saying anything. What?
It's identical. I'm agreeing with you.
Silverback, what do you say? Why wouldn't Mars have life on it?
I think you think what I would say, but look, here's the deal. Through research and a lot of academic background that you contributed to it,
yeah,
okay, you've definitively, as far as I'm concerned, proved that at one point somebody gave Mars a double whammy.
Yes, it did.
With huge nuclear devices, bombs.
Yes.
Okay. They basically scoured the planet.
Yes.
They wiped anything that was there, they wiped it off. Now, you believe that there was, and as far as that goes, so do I. Hell, even the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, back in the early 80s, got one of their, at that time, top secret remote viewers.
Yes.
Joe McGonigal was the guy.
Yes.
To remotely view Mars 1 million years ago. And what did McGonigal report he remotely viewed? A civilization. A civilization there.
I will tell you that being in Washington, D.C., and I was working closely with the Pentagon and the agencies, the reputation of remote viewing was that it was what you call a very noisy signal. But it had been often right enough where no other intelligence source had given them a clue. And basically they would find out stuff from remote viewing and then cross-check it with satellites and human intelligence and stuff like that. They'd find out it was right. And it was right often enough. Sometimes it was wrong, but it was right often enough that they could not let go of it, even though people told me that at certain of the agencies, they were uncomfortable with the idea of people basically sitting there in a chair, trying to probe things with their thoughts. That wasn't the way they were used to doing business, but at the same time, they couldn't end the program because it had been right too many times with things on Earth that they could actually check. So we also found out, by the way, I was part of a Mars investigation team started by Richard Hoagland. I was at Sandia National Labs at the time. And the headquarters of that was at Stanford Research Institute when we did it in 1984. We found out later that the remote viewing program was just down the hall from the headquarters of the Mars investigations that we were doing. So they would have, people like Hal Puthoff would have been there. They would have heard of the work going on in the building concerning Mars, which was unclassified. And that's what may have prompted them to actually try to explore Mars with remote viewing. And they basically confirmed what we found. So now here's the hitch. The civilization, the archaeology we have found on Mars looks like the remains of a fairly primitive civilization, like Bronze Age, the Mayans, the Olmecs, or Old Kingdom Egypt. I mean, we see fortifications built on top of mesas. It's like they built castles. Doesn't look like a modern. Those don't look like modern defenses or anything like this. There's no evidence of freeways or airports or anything like that. So it looks like it was a primitive culture, not able to basically build hydrogen bombs big enough to blow itself up. And the two hydrogen bomb explosions, and by the way, I checked the data I had found on the isotopes in the atmosphere, argon 40 and xenon 129. I checked it with nuclear weapons experts I worked with in the SCIFs. And they all said, you're right. These are signatures of of massive thermonuclear weapons. But they said, you can't quote me. You can't quote me on that. But they said, you're right. So basically, I had to find in the open literature, this connection between hydrogen bomb physics and the isotopic signatures. But the two things that went off over where the ocean would have been, causing, tidal waves as big as as tall as 30-story buildings to hit the coasts. And they looked like they were, based on the yield, there were hydrogen bombs as big as the Empire State Building apparently dropped from space, and they went off in midair. There's no craters. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those were airbursts, because if you're going to drop an atomic bomb on somebody, you don't want the energy going into the ground. You want it to go into shock waves and fallout. So that's why they did Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You didn't find it. You don't find big craters there. It's just all burned. So whoever did this was an advanced spacefaring civilization. So apparently the Martians did not do this to themselves. That's my own interpretation of this. Somebody else did it to them. Now, who? And are they going to come back here and do the same to us? That's why
I wonder if
Mars.
they made the mistake, John, of letting us get too advanced to where now we're dangerous.
Well, we are dangerous.
I know.
Hey, if you look in the wild, things that are dangerous are survivors. I'm sorry. The human race is around and top of the heap on this planet because it's dangerous.
Yep.
Just like the killer whale in the ocean. It's the only thing the great white shark is afraid of, because the killer whales hunt in packs, and the great white shark, even with a brain the size of the walnut, knows enough that if it hears or sees signs of great killer whales in the area, they get out of there. So the problem with intelligent life is that it is concentrated in predators like us. You have to be smarter than what you eat. If you eat grass, that's not a very big challenge, right, Mark? You have to be smarter than the grass. Okay. If you're a killer whale and you got to be smarter than the porpoises and penguins and seals that you like to eat, then you've got to be smart, right? I'm sorry. If you look, in fact, I encourage you all to look at a skeleton of a killer whale. It looks like a dinosaur. It has got a mouth with teeth that would make a alligator jealous. It looks like a dinosaur. So these intelligence is dangerous by definition, and it's concentrated in predators. So the question is, how do we make sure that whatever happened to Mars doesn't happen to us? And that's why we have to go to Mars as soon as possible. Boots on the ground. None of this sending up rovers. You could land rovers in Cydonia, Mensa, and drive them around for years and not see anything because the proof is buried, just like it was at Pompeii in Rome, in ancient Rome. It's buried under 6 feet of debris.
Well, wait a minute. A lot of it might be, but don't you think that it would be a great start if Musk was to go up there with a helicopter and a rover and go to Cydonia?
Yeah, Musk, as long as it's Musk doing it. If it's JPL doing it, they'll just say,
right.
"Oh, we didn't see anything."
And my follow-up to that is this, and I don't know anything about this, so I got to ask you. So, sure. Is it feasible, and would they do it to basically tell Musk, hands off, you ain't going, we're not going to allow you?
I don't think so anymore. Here is what I think, and Don can tell you, I've been urging the government privately to pursue this. The best path to disclosure of that we're not alone in the universe and we're not the only intelligent creatures in the universe, and that the universe is a little dangerous,
or a lot,
go to Mars. What?
Or a lot, or a lot dangerous.
Or a lot, yeah. And the most dangerous thing in the universe is other intelligent life. Okay. There is what's called a path to disclosure, and somebody else called this a soft disclosure. You discover, and they already have the evidence, there is life on Mars now. There was life in the past, of course. You just announce that. Then you announce that there's archaeological remains on Mars. At least they look to high probability, like archaeology. And you say, we're going to Mars, boots on the ground. This turns disclosure from being, a very traumatic event for the human race to being the beginning of a science fiction adventure. I mean, I'll go to Mars. Just give me a suit.
Well, it's also interesting that if you point it out there and not here, you can discount a lot of the issues then with society.
Here. Mark, you have hit the nail right on the head.
Hung cow.
There is with the big hammer, you put it on, and you put the nail on the head. Okay. The UFO phenomenon is very threatening to people. It suggests an advanced civilization here at Earth, mutilating cattle, abducting people, taking sperm and eggs, possibly having secret treaties with the government, possibly providing secret factions within the government with justification to apply lethal force to people to get them to shut up. You don't want to talk about all of that. Not even the present president wants to talk about that. It's been running for 80 years. But if you tell them there's life on Mars, or there was life on Mars, there's life on Mars now, there's archaeology, and something happened to them, we have to go up there to find out what happened to them so it doesn't happen here. That turns disclosure into a science fiction adventure movie that we can all play a role in. And that's a very positive top stand.
Let's not forget, and unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but a scientist that had damn near the stature of Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking.
Yes.
Okay. A man beyond brilliant. Unfortunately, Most of his life was spent in a wheelchair. He had, I believe it was Lou Gehrig's disease. But be that as it may, he cautioned everybody. He told them right up front, if we discover extraterrestrial life, leave it alone. Do not go out of your way to make us known to them. Now, Margaret Mead, a famous anthropologist, basically laid it out 50 years ago. Every primitive or sub-primitive culture that has ever been encountered by a superior culture ended up being absorbed and destroyed. I think that's what Hawking was concerned about. But hey, you know what? Gang, they're here. They've been here. And let me paraphrase a guy from the old X-Files TV show. They've been here a very long time. And not only that, but I personally, because of stuff I've encountered over the years, am convinced that some of them are living right here among us that would be indistinguishable from any other citizen you saw walking down the street. Now, why are they there? What are they doing? I have no idea. But the bottom line is they're here, okay? Now we've got to deal with it. But we can't deal with it until we know what it is we're dealing with. And the government has not done anything to make it clear to the public at large.
I agree with you. Well, what are they going to tell? They're going to tell, oh, we have, I already went over the problems the U.S. government will have talking about its history in this whole affair. But if we go to Mars, find life on Mars, archaeology on Mars, and say we got to go there, that turns it into an adventure. And let me tell you something. Did I forget to mention the civilization on Mars is dead and primitive to boot? Look, it's primitive looking to boot. It's not a threat to us. It makes us still feel like we're top of the heap. Hey, we're alive, they're dead. Not only that, we got rockets to go there. And by the way, we don't need any breakthroughs in technology to get to Mars. We can get there with sheet metal, liquid methane, and liquid oxygen.
Allegedly.
Oh, well, we've been landing these rovers on Mars using the same technology. All we got to do is
I'm just playing, dude. I go into these deep, dark things about flat Earth. We've never been to
oh my
moon.
God!
It's absolutely insanity. So I can't help myself. So.
I'll tell you. I walked into a 7-Eleven with my talkative little son one day, and there was we were just going in to buy him a drink or something like that. So there's this pulp magazine says, Temple of the Amazons found on far side of the moon. And I said, we'll have to check that out when we go back there. And the guy behind the counter, this is Cape Canaveral.
Yeah.
Cape Canaveral. He can watch the launches through the front window from, he looks and he's got his hair and everything cut just like Jesus, And he says, do you really believe we actually went to the moon?
I know.
It's crazy. So you know what I told him? I said, are you really sure there's even a moon up there?
That's it. Hey, man, I can.
And the guy went into like a catatonic trance.
Yeah, I can send you down.
And I finally just I just said, let's go, son.
There's this guy. I just saw him on YouTube, so it's got to be true. And
It's got to be true. It's
he
on
said
YouTube.
that the reason why the Musk rockets are exploding, evidently all of them, is that they're hitting the dome. And you're like, oh man, you gotta be kidding me.
They're
The stupid is strong in that one.
Well, the sad part is
sorry.
there's thousands of people, tens of thousands that believe this stuff, dude.
Hey guys, hang on. We
Crazy.
got to take our break. I
take our break.
made a decision earlier that I was going to adhere to our producer's timeline. She said 56 minutes before the hour, and we're there now. Hey, stick around. We'll be
All
back.
right.
And we are back. And I promise, at least not right now, I'm not going to do another rant currently. But no promises for the future. None at all.
Mark, Gary, this is your opening. You guys can do rants.
I don't rant on Don's show.
Okay. Well, so we find a dead civilization on Mars. If we find life on Mars, it means there's life in the stars. That's essentially 99% of disclosure. Now, one of the wonderful things about the human race is its selective attention. It will, as we all know, it will obsess on certain things in the news and ignore others. When we went to the moon on the moon race, we had plenty of UFO activity. They had swamp. Alan Hynek was telling us that the thing looks like corrugated steel landed in the swamp in Michigan with swamp gas. And people displayed childlike credulity in this because that's the way the human mind works. It shields itself psychologically.
Well, they're still here today, John.
I know. But if we do a Mars path of disclosure, I call it the highway to Mars. This is a soft path of disclosure. It leaves the human feeling that it's still in charge intact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's non-threatening. You know, the Martians are not coming and mutilating cattle and all of this stuff, abducting people. No, they're dead.
What do you say? What do you say to those people who theorize that actually we, the human race, Homo sapiens sapiens, are descendants of original Mars landings here?
Here's what I say to them. I'll say, well, that's an interesting hypothesis. The faces depicted, and we found faces at two places on Mars, Cydonia Menzen, and then this other place, Galaxis Chaos, and they look like human faces. They don't have fangs. They don't look like the little short gray aliens. They don't look like lizard men. They don't have horns. They look like us. They look like carvings by the Olmecs in Old Mexico. So what that means is people say, well, and they built stuff that we recognize of 5, pyramids and things like this. Maybe we are the Martians. The question is, how old are the ruins? The best date I can make on those ruins, based on my own scientific estimates, based on isotopes, is 300 million years ago. Mars got a head start on the Earth. It cooled. It was smaller. It cooled quicker.
Well, we didn't even have dinosaurs then, John.
No, we didn't have. We had trilobites. All the life was in the ocean. That's also could explain why somebody could come along, nuke Mars, and just ignore the Earth. There was nothing on it worth nuking. So, but that requires us to go to Mars and get access to the ruins. You cannot, that you got to do boots on the ground. You cannot go and say, ask JPL to send a rover up there and measure how old these ruins are. They'll go up there and drive around and say, we don't see no ruins.
Right.
It's not in their interest to discover anything like that on Mars.
Well, they're
Would-
not curious,
Mars
is
for
why.
themselves. What?
All they're interested in is their financial gain. They have no interest in knowledge.
Yeah,
Knowledge isn't important.
this is also a Texas-California thing at this point. You've got a completely different political environment in Texas than you do with the California congressional delegation, heavily Democratic, wants to keep all that money in California at JPL. So you basically just have to just get some adult supervision here to convene a council. It doesn't, there's plenty of scientists out there who have evidence of life on Mars right now. Get them together at NASA and just say, we have a 90% probability that there was life on Mars and there still is. And we have an 80% probability that these pictures depict archaeology.
Or not involve them at all.
And find out if the stuff is older than the dinosaurs, much older than then we are not Martians. Now, crocodiles and alligators look similar, but they're not the same species.
Right.
They
or
function.
just not involve JPL or NASA or anybody and try to support Musk and just take it out of their hands.
Yeah, just take it out of, just give Musk a bunch of money and say, go to Mars, bring us back, and tell him he can land anywhere he wants. I think before that, there was a group in the government who told Elon, yeah, you can go to Mars, but don't land here, don't land there. You notice none of the rovers land anywhere near Cydonia or Galaxis Chaos. They avoid those areas like the plague.
Right.
Why do you think they avoid it? Is it? Do you think there's an intergalactic threat to go to certain areas, like we saw with Phobos?
No, they haven't. I don't think so.
No.
You know what? I think we may have gotten the luck of the Irish. I'm genetically more than half Irish. And
which half?
What? On both sides.
Both sides?
It's the half that's not on camera,
Yeah,
Jerry.
it's the lower half.
So, I mean, the very fact that we're still alive, that there hasn't been an Independence Day or War of the Worlds, means we're being protected by some galactic federation or something. We don't care about the details. What we do is we go to Mars and dare anyone to stop us. If they want to stop us, go right ahead. You may risk
John.
a war in space.
John, you're familiar, I'm sure, of what McGonigal allegedly detected on his remote viewing session on Mars, right?
Right. And I believe it's basically correct. I wouldn't agree with his details.
Well, that's fine. But he described these beings as being twice again as tall as we are. These were very
gravity up there.
I was going to ask you that. If that's true, would that be the reason, because of the gravity difference?
It could be. In my opinion, we're going to have to just go up there and dig around and find some bones. We know so little about this situation. That's the problem.
Well, here's another question.
Okay.
Mars is a dangerous place to be because of solar radiation.
Yes.
It would be tough to get astronauts out there digging around, doing hardcore archaeology in that environment? What would it take to shield them?
Well, they could travel in vehicles that were armored and then go out for only short periods, or they could do a lot of the digging with shovel implements on the vehicles themselves. And once you have a habitat on Mars, you can, and a bulldozer, you could just bulldoze a bunch of dirt around it. You'll have plenty of protection. Mars has dirt. Dirt is what you need to protect against cosmic radiation. Or you can even put, if you want to get fancy about it, you can put up a magnetic field like the Earth has and have the area shielded by a magnetic field. So there are ways to get around that radiation problem. And also, you have all of the astronauts wear dosimeters so that but people are less sensitive to radiation than they thought they were. There are a lot of people who live at high altitude who live perfectly long, healthy lives, even though they're exposed to more cosmic radiation just because they're above, they live in the Andes, they're at high altitude. So it's also, this is a sad fact, but they found that a lot of people at Hiroshima and Nagasaki lived longer, healthier lives if they were in a kind of intermediate zone where they only irradiated a little bit. Go figure. The people who were close to the blast got leukemia and died, or died immediately. But people in the outer zones actually had lower rates of illness than the general population. So a little bit of radiation may be good for you. I don't know, but we can shield against it with dirt. And once you have liquid water, you can build and you've got 1/3 gravity. So you've got this vehicle driving around on Mars. And you just fill up the water tanks around it, and that gives you shielding. Water's a perfectly good radiation shielder. Look at the swimming pool reactors. I actually took a swim in one of those swimming pool reactors.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened. Yes, to me.
Well, something I don't hear anybody.
The only thing that happened to me.
Life on Mars.
What's that?
I was going to point out that I'd never hear anybody talk about this. That due to time dilation and gravity's impact on it, that people would actually age slower on Mars because of the lesser gravity.
Oh, I tend to think that effect is very weak. I don't think that's that's only going to change the aging rate like 1 part per thousand. The people in the space station are probably
but that might mean something to somebody, John. I want to squeeze in that extra inch,
So yeah. So I had a long talk with Don about this, and
no. Hey, you said you were going to be quiet about that.
No. It's not about that, Don. It's not about that. Your secret's safe with me. When it comes to remote viewing, I'm not saying it doesn't work. Okay.
No.
I get very annoyed with the whole subject matter, be it UFOs and Bigfoots and things, where a lot of the old assumptions aren't challenged enough, and there aren't like tests and procedures made up. And I was thinking about this. So if we get a pretty good response from remote viewing, but the general public are ignorant to it or just don't believe it, they believe the Earth is flat, for Christ's sakes.
Right.
How about do something like this? So then we could actually use it and not have to send some and be able to do some stuff before we get to Mars. Is that do something as simple as this? Find some dedicated RVers that have shown some promise, and then have them look into Fort Knox, because you know what? Musk is going to go in there. And have them look in there. have a toy of some sort in Florida, Maine, and Washington State and say, here's the block that whatever this is there, and start to test this for real in public, not the government, and say, wow, look what we're finding. We're actually finding results.
We hear about the successes of remote viewing. We don't hear about its failures because, that people are trying to sell the program.
But you can do it without the program. Much like Musk not being in the program, we as a society could do this. There's nothing stopping us from doing this.
This last several days, I've been going back through my Gary Beckham books. Okay, now Beckham, if you don't know who he was or who he is, he's kind of fallen off the radar the last 10 years or so, but was a journalist, or actually referred to himself as a rogue journalist. And he was deep diving into the IC, the intelligence community.
Sure.
And he knew, and he talked, and he corresponded with all the usual suspects, people like Putoff, Pandolfi, Kit Green, others, okay? Now, all these guys that I just mentioned, at one point or another, were up to their ass in the CIA.
Yes.
And they all recognized
Scientology.
Yeah, well, Mark,
look,
that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And that's something that basically should be explored. But at any rate, let me get back to my thought. These guys were especially cognizant of remote viewing. Now, when SRI, Stanford Research, at the behest, although at the time it was unknown, of the CIA back in the very late 60s, early 70s, okay, they were working under the assumption there was a psychic gap between the United States and the Soviet Union. Just like 10 years previous to that, okay, back in the late 50s, there was a perceived missile gap. Now, they had reports coming out of the USSR about what these people were doing, these psychics in the Soviet Union, and it scared them.
Yep.
Now, make a long story short, they started this program. They started recruiting some people, and two of the stars, and these guys were scary accurate, were Ingo Swann and a guy by the name of Pat Price. Now, unbeknownst to anybody until years later, at that time, there was a war between the IRS and the FBI and Scientology, okay? And around 77, they ended up getting raided by the IRS. L. Ron Hubbard, who was the founder of Scientology, was already dead. His wife was honchoing the outfit. She ended up going to prison, okay? But in the files of Scientology, they discovered all this secret, covert information from SRI, from Stanford Research Institute. Now, how did they get their hands on it? In what manner? Well, it turned out that Pat Price, this guy who was considered one of the top remote viewers, had been feeding his handlers at Scientology all these classified black documents, okay? He was basically feeding them. So what the hell was Scientology doing with all this stuff? Nobody knows. I don't know. But at any rate, Price. Now, Mark, you're talking about these guys. How accurate are they, and what have you? Both Swan and Pat Price were given a task to remote view a target back in West Virginia. They wanted to see if these guys could detect it. They inadvertently, purely by chance, locked in on an NSA facility there. National Security Agency, the blackest of the black, okay? And Price was so precise, according to the reports that flowed out about this, that he even identified people by name working there and the names of projects they were working on. He viewed this apparently through his mind's eye, documents that were stored away in locked facilities. Now, when that came to light, that scared hell out of everybody, because the big bugaboo that they were concerned about were Russians remotely viewing American secrets at NSA, CIA, DIA, you name it, okay? That's what they were freaked about. So yeah, they when they're good, by God, they can be real good, John.
I
Would you agree?
understand that. I'm not discounting that. What I get irritated with is that you don't need these government agencies to do this. You don't need them, just like you don't need them to go to Mars, because we have Musk. We should be able to go pull a few of these guys into some sort of independent group and say, we have tests for you, and let's work at it and try to prove it, so to a certain extent, or however, some sliding scale or something, figure out how it works, and then actually use it, and not always go back to these boogeymen who say this is how it worked and this is how successful we are. Why do we need them? Why?
Okay. First of all, I want to correct one misconception. Hal Puthoff, who I've known and talked to for many years, was a Scientologist when he was young. I was a Pentecostal Christian when I was young, until, the Tammy Faye and Jim Baker stuff just finally.
But
I saw
John,
so much of that, I left the movement. Okay,
John,
so
he worked up to a grade 8. He went as high as you could go.
I don't
That's
care.
horribly expensive and very time consuming.
He left it. He left
right,
it.
but after he reached the highest pinnacle in that organization, that's not easy. Couple of $100,000 and a ton of time. Don't discount that. Do not discount that.
I don't know anything about, I barely know anything about Scientology.
Well, I do. You're talking to a guy who's gone down the hole on that. And if you get to a class 8, the time, effort, and money it took him to get to that thing cannot be discounted.
Here, I'll tell you what I know. Hal Puthoff is a really smart guy. He's a physicist like me. He and I came up with a very almost identical theories of gravity modification. I get the same equations from his theory as I can get from mine to do gravity modification.
Right. Just because he believes in Xeno and they threw people in freaking volcanoes and he does believe that, or he wouldn't have gone to a grade 8 and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn that, doesn't mean he's an idiot.
I was told from the church pulpits 3 different times in fundamentalist church, Pentecostal fundamentalist churches that I was attending, that there was no extraterrestrial life, that this planet was the entire theater of God's.
But you didn't pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn that over 8 years.
I know, but they were constantly asking me for money. And if
Well,
I'd had
still,
any
it's
money,
totally-
I
it's
probably would have
different.
given it to him.
It's completely different. It's completely
So
different.
it was they were both, the human race is a bunch of rascals. They are. And the Scientology and many aspects of the fundamentalist Christian movements are the same. It gets taken over by people who like to make money.
I guess my point is this, John.
Yeah.
When you went through that, did you carry any of that into your future life? And even now, is there any of that left?
Well, I'm still a Christian. I go to an Episcopalian church.
He's still a Scientologist. That's a lunatic, made up, completely thing that he paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do.
I mean, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker were warning us about the dangers of Scientology. They said, please send in your money now to protect this movement.
Right, I understand that, but you can't discount his thinking process. That he wouldn't have looked at that like John would have looked at that and said, Xenu, volcanoes, get the fuck out. That's what you would have done. He didn't do that.
Hey, what were you doing when you were fucking in your 20s?
Not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on training.
Because you didn't have it then.
I mean, again, it can't be discounted. It cannot be discounted.
What were you smoking then? I mean, it's just,
again, Don just had a guy on his show last week who brought up a number of issues with people in the UAP disclosure thing, and it looks as though this Scientology thing is deeply involved.
Absolutely, they are deeply involved.
Mark, I'm so happy to be talking to somebody who in their 20s was a perfectly sober.
Oh, no, that's not the point, John. You're making an excuse. You're making an excuse for a guy that you respect, and I get that. However,
he's not a Scientologist now. I know he's not. He's told me he's not.
I understand that. I understand that. When you spend that amount of money and spend that amount of time to get to the level 8, you are not going to throw that out of your life. The effort to get that is like a PhD. And you're just not going to throw that out.
Well, he went and got a PhD also, like I did.
That's fine. You're making my point for me. He got a PhD in Scientology, and you're acting as though he's just going to I'm going to shit can that and I'm going to flush it. It made no difference in my life.
Well, I carry some good things. For one thing, it kept me off drugs, when I was young. Being a fundamentalist Christian kept me off drugs.
Great.
And I knew a lot of people who were destroyed by drugs.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I can say being in the Army did not keep me off Budweiser.
Yeah, that was one drug that I did not stay off of. I remained, well, anyway, guys, look, we have an opportunity here to go to Mars, to just declare with, they don't even have to say we're dead certain. They just said with high probability, there's life on Mars now. There was life. There's archaeology. Let's go there, find out why Mars is dead now after looking like the Earth. And to me, that makes a nice way to do disclosure.
Well, let me ask you a question, John, because Mars is right out there next to the asteroid belt.
Yeah.
And the asteroid belt, now there's a lot of theory about what that was.
Oh,
was that a failed planet? Was that a planet that something happened and it was destroyed? What, we don't know, but there's a lot of junk out there. Now, every once in a while, some of that stuff ends up jostling each other.
Yes.
kicks big rocks out of the gravity well there, and they go flying off.
Yeah, big
Some of
rock
them
falls out of space and makes little rocks travel out into space and end up on Earth.
Yeah.
There.
A lot of
And
that,
so
a lot of that
Mars-
over the years. We've been hit. Earth has been hit by some big chunks of rock in the past.
That's right.
And some bad things happen. Now, my question is, along with your 2 hydrogen warheads, how often has Mars been pummeled by asteroids? Do you have any idea?
It looks like it had a late impact as big as the one that wiped out the dinosaurs on Earth. If you look at the data, you can look at somebody actually went through all the pictures and cataloged everything by water erosion, ice erosion, everything like this. And they came up with a graph that shows this big dip in water erosion corresponding roughly to the time when this big impact, it's called the LYOT or Leo, it's French, so it's pronounced Leo, and impact, and it's up near Cydonia Mensa, and that would have really shaken, but it looks like Mars recovered, just like the Earth recovered from the asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. It looks like Mars just went back to normal after that happened, after there was a deep freeze, and that's not what killed Mars apparently. But Mars, because of its location next to the asteroid belt, was what you call accident prone. In fact, Mars basically defines the inner edge of the asteroid belt. Anything that starts drifting in towards the sun runs into Mars usually. A few things get past Mars and end up hitting Earth, like the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. But Mars was apparently tough enough and resilient enough that it would have these impacts and just keep going. It would recover. I mean,
what about right now? Now, there have been some mysteries in recent years that I have read about. One of them is an expulsion into the atmosphere of Mars of methane gas. Now, methane is the byproduct of living things. Okay.
We found swamp gas on Mars.
Yeah. Now, where in the hell did that come from?
Steak makers.
It came from the same place. The oxygen, they have graphs showing that the fourth most abundant molecule in the Mars atmosphere, there's carbon dioxide, there's some nitrogen, there's argon, which is what is in light bulbs. It's a noble gas, doesn't react with anything. And then the fourth most abundant is oxygen. And I've had people from JPL say, we can't figure out where this oxygen comes from. It's a mystery. Well, it's a mystery because they won't accept the idea of life on Mars because their management tells them they'll be standing in the unemployment line if they start saying that. So basically, you find that in the fall and summer, when the temperatures are warmest, you get more and more methane in the air and more oxygen in the air. Photosynthesis and swamp gas means microbes are digesting buried organic matter, and it's venting the methane to the air into the Martian air. And that, to me, I looked at that and I thought, oh, Mars is alive. It's basically breathing, because then during the winter, it all shuts down and the atmosphere goes back to being lower oxygen and lower methane. So it's one of the other many pieces of evidence that Mars was alive and still is alive. In fact, if you have, let's say, I grew up in Oregon, and you go to the Oregon seacoast, and it gets pretty gloomy during the winter, the seaweed is all red because green seaweed doesn't absorb enough sunlight. The peak of the solar spectrum is actually in the green. So what you do is you modify the chlorophyll in these seaweeds so they absorb the green and bounce off the red, which is the lower energy photon. So the color of plant life on Mars is probably red. So we look at these big vistas of Mars, we could be looking at life on Mars, lichen on the rocks, and it's all red. We wouldn't know the difference. In fact, one scientist I knew, very able scientist named Carol Stoker, she'd found evidence in the infrared spectroscopy taken from the satellites of chlorophyll on the Martian rocks, that there was a coating of microbes with chlorophyll. She was told to retract that article if she wanted to keep her job. She works at NASA Ames. Very smart woman. She found chlorophyll on Mars, signatures of that in the infrared, and was told, you can't say that. So Mars.
What do you think the underlying reason for that was?
Well, I hate to break it to you guys, there's a Mars cover-up as well as a UFO cover-up going on. There's basically a massive ET cover-up. It covers everything from meteorites, where they're finding microbial fossils. Richard Hoover, former NASA scientist, has found those with scanning electron microscopes. And it's basically diatoms like you find in Earth's seawater, and they're in meteorites from the asteroid belt. And he basically retired so he could speak more freely. So you've got that evidence for life elsewhere in the universe, and if you find life elsewhere in the asteroid belt, that means it's in the stars, the universe is alive. And you find evidence for life on Mars, this breathing cycle of seasonal variations in oxygen and methane. And and people, I love it. They say, well, this is a mystery. This is a mystery. No, it isn't a mystery. It's life. It's alive. Mars crawls, Gary. It crawls. So, Mark, I'm going to put you in charge of NASA. What are you going to do?
I'm going to quit and I'm going to go to work for Musk because it's pointless. It's pointless.
Suppose NASA starts giving Musk a lot of money to go to Mars to help him. Would you?
I would say no. You don't accept it at all. And you keep on going in the direction that he looks like he's going to go in. Again, if he can send a rover and a helicopter to Cydonia and get close-up shots of what are obviously milled pieces of stone and all that, that's all we need to see. But they won't do that because they're hiding archaeology, they're hiding science, they're hiding everything from us for various reasons.
There's a Mars cover-up as well as a UFO cover-up. The only nice thing about the Mars cover-up is I don't think they've killed anybody or made them go insane, put them in an insane asylum.
It goes more deep than that, though. Now, I don't know what to think of the Giza Plaza LiDAR. I don't know what to think of that. But you know as well as me that if there is anything there or not, there's still going to be a cover-up and use it whichever way they can use it, right? Of course.
What would the human race be without power elites?
Right.
Reserving knowledge to themselves. I mean, Mark, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Back
you want to keep power, you keep knowledge. What's that?
Yep. Back in the early 90s, when I was doing my first incarnation of a radio program. It was called UFOs Tonight. It was
Yes,
on the cable radio network.
I remember.
One show, maybe two shows I did where I explored an infamous, today almost totally forgotten incident in the early 1920s when an experiment was conducted that literally encompassed the globe, where there was chatter about receiving signals from outer space.
Right.
They shut down radio transmitters all around the globe. And they had a new technology then, which was a photosynthesis paper that they would receive signals coming in on the receiver, and this thing would print out on this photosensitive paper what it saw.
Yep.
And they did the experiment.
And Tesla
everybody shut
organized
their
it.
shit down. Who?
Tesla organized this.
They shut down receiver or transmitters all over the globe, and they started getting signals. And guess what popped up on that tape? Humanoid figures. Okay? Humanoid figures, like little robot figures, popped up on that tape. Now, along with that, there was a lot of chatter then about Mars, because people back in those days, they still believed in the Mars canals and that type of stuff.
Right.
And there was a Japanese astronomer by the name of Sahiki. Okay, this is about 1936, 37, before World War II.
Yeah.
And this guy was observing Mars. And Mars was in the midst of one of its tremendous dust storms where winds would start blowing. The whole damn planet would practically be blanked out by all of this dust in the wind. And then Professor Sahiki saw something he couldn't explain. He reported it, and then basically it just went away. He saw what he described in the midst of this dust storm, a bluing effect, where suddenly in the midst of all this dust and this turmoil, this immense bluing, and I'm talking about the color blue, bluing became prevalent, and it blanked out, then it went away. Nobody could ever explain what that was. And that was some very strange business. We've got stuff all around us that have been censored, blanked out for years and years and years. Who in the hell sent those humanoid figures to us?
Could be anybody from some prankster who decided they wanted, to transmit during this radio dark period. But my understanding was they waited till Mars was as close as possible so they could actually pick up signals from Mars. And by the way, canals were a big deal. They'd opened the Suez Canal, and they were trying to build the Panama Canal. Everybody was, bonkers about canals. They were considered a great engineering achievement. And so when Lowell thought he found them on Mars, everybody immediately responded to that meant there was a civilization on Mars. So it's actually been part of our culture for a long time to expect a civilization on Mars, expect life on Mars and a civilization. It's been embedded kind of in our cultural heritage. The reason we have rockets, you guys, is because of Goddard. And what was inspiring Goddard? He wanted to go to Mars to see if the canals were there that Lowell had found. That was his obsession. And so
Well, I'd love to know what the hell Lowell was looking at when he drew those extensive maps of his canale.
Well, here's what it had. Here's the way it was explained to me. In those days, cameras were still very kind of crude, and the only way you could get good pictures of Mars was to point your camera at Mars and keep the shutter open for like a second or so to gather enough light to get good color pictures. And during that time, the atmosphere of the Earth would fluctuate and wipe out all the details. So you were basically viewing it through a, like a diffuse, ground glass, cover. So the best thing that they had available to observe Mars with was the human eye. I believe that Lowell was actually doing, in a sense, remote viewing. He knew there was a dead civilization up there, and his eyes basically connected the dots. And the human race loves to connect dots. And let me tell you something, Don, and you know this from creeping around in the zoo out in Nam, that the human eye system is highly optimized to spot faces staring at you through the bushes. That's one thing it's very highly optimized to do. It'll save your life if you can recognize a face in the middle of the bush staring at you through the bushes. The other thing that can save your life is the ability to detect straight lines, especially if they're arrows or spears headed for you. And for most of the human and later an RPG, if you can spot an RPG flying at you, it's going to save your life. And that means detecting straight lines. So the human race has a visual system that is keyed to detecting faces and straight lines. And that's because of our tribal heritage. For most of the human race's history, we've been our own worst enemy. We killed off everything that was a real direct threat, like leopards. And finally, it was just the tribe over on the other side of the river that was our natural enemy. And if you're part Irish like me, it was them damn Brits over there across the Irish Sea. So I think I think Lowell actually may have been doing kind of remote viewing in a sense, because even though the canals he thought he saw, okay, maybe they weren't there, but the civilization is there, the archaeology.
Right. Here's another reason we have to, in my opinion, when Musk, I think you guys would agree with me, Musk is like 1 in a billion, right? I mean, it's amazing what he's doing,
remarkable
right?
Guy.
Right. Yeah. He's very remarkable. And another reason why he needs to be supported. And, I haven't always been a fan, because I know that through like his solar company, he got a lot of our tax money to do his solar company, where it's like, well, why his solar company? Lots of people wanted to start solar companies. So that's just a personal thing. I've gotten past that because of what he's done since then. Okay.
Sure.
But we have to deal with a society, especially in America, and I know this is hard to believe, Don, but I'll have people who I went to high school with back in the 70s, and they'll tell me that all Musk did was put together his rocket company. He's done nothing else. He just put the pieces together and other people do it. And it's like, what, are you freaking crazy? That alone says a lot about him, but that isn't the truth, because look at what the technology that's never existed before. That's the people we're dealing with, who would rather give money to NASA and JPL and then say, oh boy, we know it's going to be safe there, instead of going to somebody like Musk, who's proven himself. That's the society that we're dealing with, right?
We're going to get to Mars, Mark.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And Elon Musk is going to get us there with his
I
rockets.
can't wait until we land the rover and the helicopter. That's the first thing I want to see right there in Cydonia and fly around and go, oh my God, finally.
You remember John Young, the astronaut? He
Yeah.
flew on he flew on Mercury,
Yep.
Gemini, and Apollo.
Superstar.
He was at I love the guy. He had a really down home, and he came and visited us at the Clementine mission, where I was just involved with just operating the spacecraft. I didn't look at the pictures. We weren't even supposed to look at the pictures except to make sure the cameras were working. So but he came through there, and we had pictures of the landing site on the moon where he had landed. And he said, oh, there's crater such and such, and there's crater such and such. There I was, and so I had a picture of Cydonia Mensa with the face on Mars and the pyramid right next to each other. One of these pictures that NASA never likes to show, because if you see a face in a pyramid, then it's kind of obvious what you're looking at. So I showed it to him, and I said, who do you think we could find to be brave enough to go land at this place on Mars? And he says, well, there's a nice flat spot right by the face. He says, I'll put the spacecraft down right there. He said, send me.
Yeah.
He was ready to go.
It's because he had the right stuff.
He had the right stuff. And we still got people with the right stuff. We do.
Oh, yeah. No, I completely agree.
I'll go to Mars.
I'd love to go to Mars, but I'm too damned old.
Well, it's only 1/3 gravity up there, And hey, Don, who wants to live forever?
Come on, Don.
Could I take my beagle with me?
Yeah, you can take your beagle with you. We'll get a little spacesuit for him.
Bill Shatner is older than you, and at least he went up to space, right? And
he did.
Ballsy guy. Ballsy.
I know.
He's got big balls, that's for sure. And he showed us how to do it.
Absolutely.
That man
and he showed George Takei how it's done, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh my!
Hey, he got to kiss O'Hara, and she was one of my childhood crushes.
Absolutely.
I had a crush on both of them, and
that Nubian princess.
What?
She was a Nubian princess.
She's a Nubian princess. Well, and one of my most and Raquel Welch,
Oh, gee, really? Oh, gee.
The biggest, most beautiful eyes I've ever seen.
Big surprise there. I've been, going through puberty, and what am I watching? I'm watching Star Trek and Fantastic Voyage with.
Oh wait! Anne Margaret comes to mind. Gee, imagine that.
Oh, hey, we had everything. We were living in heaven, and we didn't have it. See, we didn't realize how lucky we had it. But Don, of course, you're out there in the zoo, as they called it, go creeping and peeping through the bushes. And but hey, because you went, I didn't have to go.
Thank you, Don. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. I salute you for that. And by the way,
you're welcome.
Look, the human race, especially the United States, will muddle through this.
Oh yeah, sure.
We'll muddle through. And but to me, Mars is the way to do soft disclosure.
I agree. That's a good way to put it. It's like, don't do it on Earth. Don't mess up with the fundamentalists. Don't do any of that.
Oh, yeah.
Just look over there.
Don't look, the stuff on Mars, it's dead. It's not a threat.
Yeah. And there's proof. There's evidently proof there. So it's like, well, let's just go there and get the proof, and then your little issues aren't in jeopardy. because it has
No, they
nothing to
aren't.
do with your issues.
And the human, I mean, the human race, look at its history, has a ability to selectively pay attention to certain other things and
Absolutely.
ignore certain other things.
Absolutely.
Somebody will say,
Well,
what about
boys,
the-
I've got an issue.
Okay, what's
that
your
issue-
issue, Silverback?
Issue is we are 30 seconds from being totally out of time. I want to thank Dr. John Brandenberg for once again appearing
pleasure and
on
honor,
Dark Matters
you guys.
Radio.
A pleasure. and honor
Jerry,
to-
Mark, as always, guys, I appreciate the hell out of you. And we should, good Lord willing, the river don't rise, be back again in 1 week, Thursday. Okay, UAP Crossfire on KGRAdb, right here, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern time. And that's basically it, gang. Thank you so much to the greatest audience on the planet, the KGRA audience. We'll see
Thank
you
you
next
all.
time around.
God
Good night.
bless Sam and Dean Winchester.
There you go.